Some heartbreaks leave scars, but the ones suffered in silence, they build a strength no one sees coming. And before we begin, if you love emotional billionaire stories filled with quiet pain, unexpected strength, and twists that hit deep, hit subscribe. Now, let's begin. Ava Hale never thought love could feel lonely. She married Ethan Maddox believing that wealth didn't erase humanity, that a man blessed with so much power could still choose tenderness. She believed that kindness mattered more than influence. She believed, for a long time, that she was chosen out of love, not convenience. First, Ethan made it easy to believe. He had a confidence that filled a room, but he softened around Ava. He touched her face like it was priceless china. He asked about her dreams more than her pedigree. On their wedding night, he whispered, "You're my peace, my calm, my quiet in all the noise." Ava carried those words like armor. But even the strongest armor wears thin under repeated blows. As months passed, Ethan's tenderness shifted into absence. He worked longer hours, frowned more, smiled less. Ava tried to fill the spaces with warmth, but warmth can't hold when it is never held in return. She blamed stress, burden, corporate pressure. Then she blamed herself. Maybe she wasn't enough. Maybe she didn't glow the way powerful men expected their wives to. Maybe she didn't belong beside someone like him. But tonight, the night everything changed, Ava discovered the truth was far more painful. She was 8 months pregnant, moving slowly down the grand staircase of the Maddox estate. Late-night hunger and a restless baby had pulled her from bed. The lights downstairs were on, illuminating soft shadows against polished marble. She thought Ethan had fallen asleep in his study again. Instead, she heard laughter. A woman's laughter, light, smooth, too comfortable. Ava's breath stalled. She reached the final step and froze. Ethan sat on the sofa, shoulders relaxed in a way she hadn't seen in months. Sitting beside him was Isabella Lane, his executive assistant. The woman who, in whispers and office gossip, the world already paired with him long before Ava found out she was pregnant. Isabella was beautiful in the sort of way magazines reward: sleek hair, sharp jaw, expensive elegance. She leaned toward Ethan, whispering something only meant for him. He smiled, not politely, not superficially, but genuinely. The kind of smile Ava thought belonged only to her. A quiet laugh escaped him. That laugh cut deeper than any confession ever could. Ava's heart throbbed with a slow, heavy ache. Not because she didn't expect pain from life, but because it had come from the only place she thought she was safe. She didn't make a sound. Her bare feet stayed planted on marble. Her hand found the curve of her stomach, as if shielding the little heart forming beneath her own. She listened only for proof she already prayed wouldn't exist. Isabella's voice drifted across the room. "She's sweet, but you don't love her, Ethan. I mean, everyone sees that." A stunned quiet fell. Ava waited for Ethan to deny it, to say even one word in her defense. But he didn't. In fact, he sighed, almost relieved, and replied, "It's complicated. Ava knows her place. She understands the marriage." That sentence changed her. She didn't hear anything else. She didn't wait for more. She didn't want to know how much deeper the knife could go. Ava stepped away, heart cracking but face composed. There were no dramatic sobs, no shattered vases, no accusations. She simply walked back upstairs, because some heartbreaks are too big for sound. Her suitcase was small. She packed only what she needed: comfortable clothes, a few essentials, prenatal documents, and the framed ultrasound picture she kept beside her bed. She paused once, just once, before leaving. She placed her wedding ring on the dresser, next to the photo of their honeymoon. The ring lay there like a silent apology for a love that didn't survive. Without anger, without a single tear, Ava left the mansion. The air outside was cold. She breathed it in slowly, painfully, like it might hold her together. Not once did she look back. The driver at the estate gate recognized her immediately and asked if Ethan knew she was leaving. Ava only responded, "He will when it matters," and the car pulled away. She did not go to a hotel. She did not call a friend. Instead, she went somewhere Ethan had never truly understood. Home. A private Hale residence that most people didn't know existed. Nestled behind security walls. Guarded by men who never smiled. Wrapped in quiet luxury that wasn't shown online. Ava's last name wasn't Maddox in spirit. It was Hale. Roman Hale. Luca Hale. Kai Hale. 3 names Ethan had always assumed were distant relatives or well-off cousins she rarely saw. He never bothered to learn who they truly were, because he never thought it mattered. The Hale brothers didn't flaunt wealth. They ran it. They didn't buy seats at tables. They owned tables. Industrial, global, political, private. Their reach was vast, and their silence was powerful. Ava grew up surrounded by strength, but she had always been different. Gentle where they were strategic, quiet where they were commanding, heart-led where they navigated with precision. The brothers adored her for that difference, and protected her because of it, which is why both Luca and Roman were already awake when she arrived, instinct sharpened by shared blood. Roman opened the door first. The moment he saw her, tired eyes, delicate steps, small hand guarding her unborn child, his expression shifted. Not with anger, not with questions, with recognition, the kind that only comes from brothers who feel their sister's pain before she says a word. Luca stepped into view behind him, hard gaze flicking to her stomach. Kai appeared next, silent as always, studying her face the way a man studies coordinates before a rescue mission. None of them asked where Ethan was. None asked why she came. Kai spoke first, voice low. "You're safe now." His words broke something loose inside her. A breath escaped her chest, half shaken, half relieved. Roman placed a hand on her shoulder. "Go rest. We'll handle everything else." Ava wanted to protest. She wanted to explain, apologize, defend. But exhaustion pulled her deeper than pride, and she let the family she had once tried to protect her instead. That night, she slept. Really slept. Not rest as escape, but rest that comes when the right arms hold the walls from collapsing. Ethan did not call, did not check the security logs, did not notice the empty side of the bed. Not yet. And that silence told Ava everything she needed to know. Not about him, but about herself. For the first time in months, she wasn't waiting to be loved. She was remembering how to breathe without permission. And before dawn stretched across the city skyline, she made a silent vow. If Ethan Maddox ever wanted to see her again, it would not be as the quiet woman who waited for scraps of affection, but as the Hale woman he never bothered to understand. And when the world finally began shifting around him, her name would be the first reason why. Ava woke up the next morning to sunlight cutting gently through tall glass windows. The Hale estate never felt like a mansion. It felt like breathing space. Soft walls, warm wood, quiet corners, an air that didn't hold tension. Roman had deliberately built it that way when their parents passed. It was a home designed for healing. Her room overlooked the garden, lavender shrubs, trimmed rose arches, a stone path leading to a sculpture surrounded by fountains. It was peaceful, designed by Ava herself years ago. She lay still, one hand on her belly, feeling the tiny life inside respond, rolling softly. For a brief, fragile moment, it almost didn't hurt anymore. Breakfast was already prepared when she came downstairs. Fresh fruit, mild tea safe for pregnancy, soft bread. Luca was seated at the head of the table, earbuds out, tablet closed, attention fully on her the moment she entered. Kai leaned against the wall beside the window, silent, hands in pockets, analyzing like he always did. Roman was pacing, not frantic but thoughtful, calculating. The air carried everything they didn't say. Luca gestured. "Eat. The tea will help with the tightness you get when you're stressed." Ava blinked. You can tell? His voice softened. I've watched you hide strain since you were 12. I know that look. She didn't deny it. Roman eventually spoke, tone calm but firm. We didn't ask what happened last night. We won't. When you're ready, you tell us. Until then, all you need to know is that you're not alone. Kai added, barely above a whisper, and you won't ever be again. Their gentleness made her chest ache more than the pain itself. But she wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. So instead she asked, does work need you? I don't want to disrupt anything. Luca gave the smallest laugh. Sis, you can't disrupt us. You're the priority. Kai nodded. We cleared schedules. Roman stepped closer, thumb brushing a tear she didn't know had fallen. Let yourself be held. Just this once. Ava exhaled, shaky but grateful. She didn't have to explain. Their silence made room for her breathing. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan Maddox was beginning to sense imbalance. He woke late, reached for the other side of the bed, and found it empty. He assumed she was in the kitchen, or reading in the sunroom, or curled on the couch with tea. He checked every space. No sign of her. It wasn't until noon, when his phone chirped with a business inquiry addressed to Mrs. Hale, that the first sliver of unease slipped in. Mrs. Hale, not Maddox. He frowned at the sender, reread the line twice. It wasn't suspicion yet, but something unfamiliar pressed against the edges of his chest. When he texted Ava, his message returned undelivered. He tried again, then again. No response, only stillness. But Ethan Maddox wasn't a man who panicked over one unanswered text. His world was built on logic, numbers, forecasts. Surely Ava would return by evening. She always did. She always forgave him. She always stayed, even in silence. He didn't consider another possibility. Back at the Hale estate, Ava sat in the garden beside Kai. The youngest brother had always been the quiet presence, one who spoke little but heard everything. He watched her inhale the lavender breeze before saying, "You're calmer today." "I'm trying," she whispered. "You're allowed not to try." His tone was gentle. Ava hesitated. "If I stop trying, I think I'll break." Kai turned his head, studying her with those razor-sharp eyes. "You already did, Ava." He said it without cruelty, only truth. "And you survived anyway." The words landed on her like a slow sunrise. Survived. Yes, she had. She was still breathing, still standing, still carrying life. But a wound surviving and a wound healing were not the same. Ava wasn't healing yet. She was simply learning how to feel without collapsing. That afternoon, Roman left for an appointment. Luca retreated to his office to handle security transfers. Kai returned upstairs after reassuring her that someone always stayed nearby, just in case stress or physical strain hit. Ava wandered the garden alone, her thoughts moving carefully, like they were afraid of stepping on something fragile. She wasn't angry at Ethan. Anger required expectation. She simply grieved what she once believed, what she tried to nurture, the version of him she once hoped would reappear. Somewhere behind all the distance, she still remembered the man who held her hand through doctor's visits, who panicked at her first fainting spell, who painted tiny color swatches on nursery walls at 2 a.m. just to see which one she liked. But those memories only made her ache deeper. Love didn't disappear in one night, but trust had cracked in silence long before she walked away. The betrayal itself wasn't what destroyed her. It was overhearing Ethan defend her absence. He didn't say, "She means everything." He didn't whisper, "Don't talk like that. I love her." He said, "She understands," as if her heart had no weight, as if devotion was duty, not choice. Ava pressed her palm gently over her stomach. "No," she murmured to herself. "I understand now." Across town, Ethan's phone finally rang. He rushed to answer. It wasn't Ava. It was his legal department. Confused voices, conflicting updates, sudden account holds, minor compliance concerns being flagged and escalated. Ethan stared at the reports, unsettled. Maddox Corporation never received unexpected scrutiny. Not without a reason. not without someone capable of moving invisible levers. He dismissed the feeling. Coincidence, surely. Investigations happen. Still, when he tried Ava's number again, for the 5th time, and heard the same cold disconnect tone, a crack formed in his certainty. Where was she? Why wasn't she home? Why wasn't she answering? He tried Isabella, disguising discomfort behind casual tone. Have you heard from Ava today? Isabella stiffened, not in regret, but caution. No. Why? Is she upset? I don't know, Ethan muttered. Do you think she saw us last night? Ethan froze. The ghost of his laugh from that night echoed in memory. The softness that wasn't meant for another woman. Isabella noticed the shift in his breathing. I'm sure everything is fine. She's always quiet. She'll come back. Ethan nodded automatically, but the longer his silence stretched, the less he believed it. Back at the Hale estate, Ava spent the evening reading near the window. Roman returned first, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and asked if she wanted company. She shook her head with a small, grateful smile. He respected it instantly. Kai checked her pulse later and gave her water. Luca quietly installed new prenatal monitoring equipment in her room, so she wouldn't have to visit clinics unless necessary. And through it all, no one asked a single question about Ethan. They didn't need to. Protecting her mattered more than explaining her. It wasn't until Ava settled into bed that the weight of everything she had walked away from began to unravel. Not as grief, but clarity. She didn't crave revenge. Didn't need Ethan ruined. Didn't imagine him begging. She only wanted peace. And somehow, peace felt possible here, even if her heart still trembled in the quiet. The brothers met privately that night. Closed doors. Low voices. Soft tension. Ava didn't know what they discussed. She didn't know about the subtle shifts already unfolding beyond the walls. Corporate reassessments. Partnership hesitations. Security queries landing on Ethan's desk the next morning. Not because they hated him. Not because they wanted him destroyed. But because love, even failed love, still deserved truth. And if Ethan Maddox ever wanted Ava back in his arms, he would need to prove he deserved her heart in the first place. Ava didn't know any of that. She only knew that as she drifted to sleep, for the first time in months, her heartbeat wasn't fighting itself to stay steady. And somewhere across the city, Ethan sat alone in a cavernous house that finally felt too large, wondering, quietly trembling, where his wife had gone. Ethan Maddox didn't sleep that night. He kept replaying moments he'd dismissed as harmless. The way Ava looked away when he walked past her. How she'd begun hiding her tremors when the pregnancy weighed on her. How she smiled smaller, softer, thinner each month. He thought distance was normal, inevitable, a byproduct of power and work. He never imagined it was a warning. He sat on the edge of their empty bed at dawn, rubbing both hands over his face as the truth finally whispered. Something was wrong, and he'd been too distracted, too arrogant, too numb to see it. He sent another message. No response. Checked every camera feed from his mansion. She wasn't anywhere on the property. He even dared to call her physician, masking panic under polite tone. Ava's safe, right? She hasn't had complications? The doctor hesitated, voice cautious. All records were transferred to a private facility this morning, sir. I assumed you authorized it. Transferred. Authorization not from him. Ethan's pulse stumbled. Who had authority over his wife besides him? Back at the Hale estate, Ava's day began quietly. Roman had left early. Kai reviewed medical notes. Luca brewed tea with ginger and mint to ease nausea. Ava watched them like they were strangers she was still learning. Not brothers who used to hold her hand through childhood nightmares. Distance wasn't emotional. It was adjustment. She had spent months shrinking her existence down to the size of a woman waiting at her own window. Now, being protected felt heavy and freeing at the same time. Kai set the cup in front of her. Your cortisol levels dipped last night, he said softly. You slept deeply. That's good for the baby. Ava smiled, one hand unconsciously circling her stomach. Thank you for all of this. I know I didn't announce anything. Roman responded without looking up from his phone. You never need to announce pain. It's allowed to arrive uninvited. That sentence almost broke her. Roman always had a way of naming things she refused to voice. While Ava took a slow walk through the garden later that afternoon, Luca's phone pinged with a message. He checked his screen, expression unreadable. Ethan Maddox filed a missing person inquiry, he announced calmly. Roman didn't flinch. Kai's gaze didn't shift from the documents in front of him. Only Ava reacted, breath-catching. He what? Luca turned to her, tone gentle. He's starting to look. That's expected. Ava swallowed. I didn't disappear. I just left. Roman closed the distance between them. Leaving is allowed, and we'll handle whatever comes next. You don't need to brace for confrontation. I'm not bracing, she whispered. I just didn't want him afraid. Roman studied her long enough to see the truth beneath the layer of compassion. Ava wasn't afraid for Ethan. She was afraid of herself if she saw him too soon. Afraid of old softness returning. Afraid that the parts of her that still remembered his laughter would drown her clarity. Some wounds look healed until the one who gave them walks back in the room. Roman's voice softened. You're allowed to care that he hurts, but you are not responsible for repairing it. Ethan, meanwhile, reviewed security logs, flight manifests, every contact she'd saved. His office filled with papers, open search windows, and half-empty cups of coffee. He tried to recall the moment she slipped away. What was she wearing? Did she say goodbye? Did she look back? No memory triggered, because he didn't see her leave. He hadn't even noticed she was missing that night. That truth lodged like a stone beneath his ribs. He walked through the house slowly, moving past cold spaces where her warmth used to sit. Her paint brushes abandoned in the sunroom. A half-finished mural she once started for the nursery. A soft blanket she used while reading on rainy evenings. The quiet felt wrong. Rooms echoed a loneliness he'd dismissed while chasing attention from someone who shone brighter in meetings and flashed confidence under flattering light. Isabella noticed his distance by late afternoon. Ethan, you're pale. Sit down, she pleaded gently. He shook his head. Have you spoken to Ava's family? Her brows pinched. I thought she wasn't close to them. You said they were barely in the picture. He felt embarrassment crawl under his skin. Because he had assumed that, decided it, never asked, never cared enough to learn. I don't think any of us knew her at all, he muttered. Isabella touched his arm, trying to comfort him. She'll be back. You're stressed. The board is breathing down your neck. She probably just needed space. Ethan pulled away, unaware of how sharply. Space doesn't come with transferred medical files, he said, or disconnected calls. Isabella stiffened, tension creeping between them, but Ethan's mind was already miles away. At the Hale estate, Ava sat in her art studio, or rather, the one Kai had prepared overnight. Canvas stretched across a large frame. Soft earth-tone paints. Filtered daylight pouring from a skylight. She stared at the blank canvas a long while, brush idle in her hand. Creating used to be escape, therapy, freedom. But tonight, the canvas felt like memory, waiting to record a life she hadn't fully stepped back into. Eventually, brush touched color. Slow strokes, muted shapes. Nothing dramatic, just expression. Healing, not performing. At some point, Luca leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You always paint when choosing, he murmured. Ava paused. Choosing, he nodded. Between letting go and reopening the wound. She smiled sadly. Maybe I'm doing both. Then paint slow, Luca replied. Rushing decisions only repeats old ones. Ethan finally called her mother's old number. Disconnected. He tried her closest college friend. No recent contact. every thread that should lead to her dead. He sat back, heart pounding not in anger, but fear, because Ethan Maddox suddenly realized something he had never bothered to understand. Ava Hale didn't need him to survive. She never did. And if she was gone by her own choice, what did that say about the marriage he neglected? About the nights she lay awake beside him, eyes open, feeling alone while pressed against his heartbeat? His chest tightened, not with pride, not with ego, but regret. Regret that didn't come loud, came slow, suffocating, heavy. He whispered into that cold room, "Where did you go, Ava? And why didn't I see you leaving?" Later that night, Ava stepped onto the balcony, wrapped in a light shawl. The city lights glittered in the distance. Quietness buzzed in the air like a lullaby. Kai joined her, leaning quietly against the railing. "You're thinking too loud." Ava exhaled. "Do you think he's looking for me?" Kai didn't sugarcoat. "Yes." "Is he angry?" "No. He's unraveling. That will be harder on him than anger." She held her belly. "I don't want him broken. I just needed to stop breaking myself." Kai nodded, eyes gentle. "And you did. What happens next?" she whispered. He considered it a moment. "Next," he said, "you decide whether memory becomes anchor or lesson." Ava closed her eyes at that, because she still remembered the man who once kissed her forehead like prayer. And she remembered the night his silence cut deeper than betrayal. Both versions existed. Both were true. And both weighed heavily on the future. 3 miles away, Ethan sat alone in his office with photo albums he had never opened. Ava smiling mid-laugh. Ava wiping flour from her cheek while baking. Ava sleeping curled against him on a rainy evening. He traced the images with his thumb, guilt thick in his breathing. He whispered into the emptiness, "I failed you. I see that now." But the walls didn't answer, and Ava was too far to hear. Then his phone buzzed again. Another abrupt notice that a major partner had paused negotiations without explanation. Something whispered through him, chilling and sharp. This wasn't coincidence anymore. It was consequence. And Ethan Maddox, a man who built empires with iron logic, finally felt fear. Not of losing business, but of losing her. Night arrived heavier than usual over the Maddox estate. Ethan sat alone in the dim light of his study, the glow of a desk lamp cutting sharp angles across the room. Unread messages, flagged contracts, and termination alerts blinked on his computer. His pen sat untouched atop a file requiring urgent signatures. But Ethan had drowned in numbers before. He had solved crises, bent economies, stared down hostile boardrooms. Pressure wasn't new. Emptiness was. The one person who made the house feel lived in, simply gone. Ava's absence was no longer a whisper. It was a haunting. Every room echoed with her. The piano bench where she hummed quietly, the hallway where she paused to breathe when exhaustion tightened her chest, the nursery sketches taped on the wall. None of it held meaning yesterday. Tonight it all did. He called Isabella again, asking if she had seen Ava at work, at the doctor, anywhere. Isabella tried to soothe him. "Ethan, she always retreats when emotional. She's delicate. She'll return when she cools down." But Ethan finally understood something that Isabella never did. Ava Hale was not delicate. She was restrained. Delicacy breaks. Restraint survives. And Ethan was beginning to learn just how quietly powerful restraint could be. He cut the call short, politely, but with the edge of a man unraveling. Then he picked up his phone, typed Ava's name again, stared at it, and deleted it. He didn't know whether to beg, apologize, or simply admit defeat. And silence swallowed him whole. At the Hale estate, the night felt different. Roman had returned from a long meeting. Kai reviewed a quiet list of Ava's health data. Luca took calls that Ava didn't even know existed. Ava sat curled on the living room couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching dim lights flicker across polished tile. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She was simply breathing, steady, even present. Roman dropped onto the couch armrest, leaning toward her. Rest. Your body is working overtime. Ava smiled faintly. I'm not thinking of anything heavy. Just the baby. Luca sat across from her. Thinking of the baby doesn't mean Ethan isn't also sitting somewhere in that thought. She hesitated, then nodded. I know, but he's not standing in the center of it anymore. Just the edges. Kai entered the room quietly, placing a folded letter in front of her. It came to your old mailbox. Redirected here. His expression carried warning in its softness. Ava opened the envelope slowly. It was from Ethan. His handwriting precise, structured, the strokes of a man who never stumbled. Ava, I don't know what you saw or what hurt you enough to leave, but I'm beginning to understand that what I failed to give broke you longer than I realized. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Not today. I just need you to know. I am looking for you, and I hope you are safe. Ethan. No excuses. No flattery. Just honesty stripped bare. Ava traced the final sentence repeatedly. Safe. She hadn't felt safe in months. Not because Ethan had threatened her or hurt her physically, but because she had learned to hold her breath when he walked away, to measure her worth by how often he remembered she existed. Safety isn't only about walls and doors. It's about being seen. Roman finally spoke. He's trying. That matters. Ava didn't answer right away. Her voice came small but steady. Yes, but sometimes trying comes too late. Across the city, Ethan scrolled through photos he once ignored. Ava laughing with flour on her face. Ava falling asleep against his shoulder. Ava holding the first baby outfit she ever bought. Pale yellow with tiny embroidered stars. He remembered the light in her eyes that day. She smiled like life itself was a gift. He also remembered being on the phone during that moment, negotiating a merger, barely acknowledging her excitement. He'd said, "You pick. I trust your taste," without even glancing up. Looking at the picture now, he saw the emptiness in his own posture. He wasn't beside her. He was near her, and that was the difference that wounded. He leaned back, whispering to the silence. Why did I let myself forget you? The question had no answer, but the ache that followed was louder than any reply. At breakfast the next morning, Ava noticed the subtle tension around her brothers. Roman had been silent longer than usual. Luca was more alert. Kai observed Ava with protective calculation. Something's wrong, Ava murmured. Roman placed down his coffee. Ethan Maddox requested a private review of your medical records. Ava's breath hitched. He what? Legally, he still has limited access as your spouse, Luca explained. But he didn't use those channels. He sent private inquiries, quiet ones, urgent ones. He's worried. Ava stared at the table. Her heart twisted, not in longing, but in empathy. Worry meant care. Care meant attachment. Attachment meant something still lived between them, buried under pain. But care also arrives late sometimes. Kai leaned forward. He's realizing you are not an appendage to his success. He's realizing the absence he created. And he's realizing the impact of losing it. Roman met Ava's eyes. If Ethan comes back into your life, it must be by your permission. Not by panic, not by guilt, not because the silence hurts him, but because you choose him freely, the same way you chose to leave. Ava breathed out slowly. I'm not ready to choose anything. I don't even know what I feel. Everything is tangled. Untangling takes time, Kai murmured. And you deserve time. Later that evening, Ethan sat in his car outside the mansion staring at gates that rose higher than he remembered. Security cameras scanned him. Men at the gate whispered, recognizing the infamous CEO. Ethan's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. He didn't approach. He didn't demand answers. He didn't try to break through with authority. He just waited, hoping Ava would step out, even for a second. even to confirm she was okay. But she didn't. Not that night. Not when lights inside the property flickered. Not when vehicles entered and exited. He drove away, chest hollow, mind repeating one quiet truth. If Ava had wanted him to see her, she would have shown herself. And the fact that she hadn't said everything. Inside, Ava stood hidden by drapes, watching his car remain idling at the gate. Headlights cutting across stone, unmoving. Her heart clenched, not because she wanted to run to him, but because she finally saw what he hadn't before. He was scared of losing her. Not his image, not convenience, not social optics. Her, the person who laughed quietly, who painted dreams, who held life inside her patiently. When his car eventually left, Ava whispered a truth she barely admitted even to herself. I still love you, but I love myself more now. As midnight settled, the Hale brothers gathered once again. And though they didn't discuss tactics or retaliation, they did agree on one thing. If Ethan Maddox had any place in Ava's future, it would not be as a man who assumed her presence, but as a man willing to earn it. Not through grand gestures, not through fear, but through patience and humility. And on that longest night of realization, Ava lay awake, hand resting against the curve of her child, breathing softer than she had in months. Because even if the future was uncertain, for the first time, the uncertainty did not terrify her. It simply meant possibilities. And possibilities meant freedom. 2 weeks passed. 2 quiet, thoughtful weeks. Neither long nor short, just enough time for space to soften emotions while sharpening truths. Ava spent her days painting, walking the gardens, reading in sunny corners of the estate. The baby grew steady and strong. Her body began to relax. Her mind, once tight as a wound, loosened gently. Healing never announced itself. It simply arrived one morning, threaded quietly through her breathing. She wasn't whole yet, but she could finally feel herself again. And that was enough. Meanwhile, Ethan Maddox became a man unrecognizable from the one she left. No business trips, no late dinners, no assistant laughing beside him in dimly lit rooms. He spent nights combing through memories of Ava, not just the pleasant ones, but the silent warnings he ignored. The way her hand slipped away from his in public. How she smiled less the deeper he fell into distraction. How her voice became careful, as though she weighed every word, afraid to disturb him. He noticed these details now because he finally understood their meaning. Ava didn't leave during the betrayal. She started leaving long before that, the night he stopped choosing her in small ways. And what terrified him wasn't that she walked out. It was that she learned how to breathe without him and looked peaceful while doing it. One morning, Ava awoke to Kai knocking softly on her door. Ethan requested a meeting, he said gently. No confrontation, no pressure. He just wants to speak to you privately. Somewhere neutral. Ava's heartbeat stuttered. Not in fear, but in bittersweet anticipation. For the first time since leaving, the thought of seeing Ethan didn't feel suffocating. It didn't feel like she'd be swallowed by grief or anger. It just felt necessary. Closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's simply looking someone in the eyes and saying the truth out loud, without shaking. Ava nodded slowly. I'll see him. Kai squeezed her shoulder. We'll be nearby, but this decision is entirely yours. The chosen place. A quiet glass-walled conservatory cafe near the botanical gardens. Open air, neutral ground, silent enough for honesty. Ava arrived first, wearing a soft blue dress that rested gently over her belly. Her hair fell naturally, free of effort. No dramatics. She didn't come to impress or punish. She came as herself. Not the wife who endured silence, not the woman who left, but the woman rediscovering her identity. Ethan arrived a few minutes later. A tailored suit, but without arrogance. No watch, no distraction. Just a man who walked carefully, like each step carried a memory. When their eyes met, everything paused. Not romantically, not painfully, just humanly. Ethan sat slowly, hands folded, breath unsteady. "Thank you for coming," he murmured. She nodded. "Thank you for asking kindly." A tiny, brief smile flickered on his face, the kind softened by humility. For the first time since they met, Ethan looked vulnerable. Minutes passed before he spoke again. "I owe you honesty," he began quietly. "No excuses, no explanations to defend myself. Just truth." Ava waited, steady. "I failed you in small ways long before the big hurt arrived. Not seeing you, not hearing you, letting my focus drift so far from us that I convinced myself you didn't need attention. Because you never demanded it." He swallowed. "And I realize now, you deserved love that didn't need to be begged for." He didn't cry. His voice didn't tremble theatrically. It was the bare tone of a man finally seeing what he'd destroyed. "I am ashamed of who I was that night," he whispered. "I should have defended your name, your heart, and our marriage. But I didn't, and I don't expect forgiveness for that." Ava listened quietly, allowing the words to settle. Ethan continued, gaze lowered. "I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not asking for another chance. I don't even know if I deserve to be part of your future. I just needed you to know." The silence left me face to face with everything I avoided seeing. "I'm different now. Not because I want you back, but because losing you showed me what kind of man I never want to be again." Ava nodded once, not in agreement but in understanding. Her voice was soft when she spoke. "I believed you loved me once. Maybe you did. Maybe we both did. But love is responsibility. It's attention. It's presence. And the day I realized I was giving all of that alone, something inside me cracked." She blinked away tears, not of pain, but acceptance. "I don't hate you," she whispered. "I just can't be the woman waiting for someone to notice her again." Ethan inhaled shakily. "I know. And I wouldn't want that for you anymore either." They sat in tender silence. Ethan's eyes finally drifted to her belly, and pain passed through them. "May I?" he asked hesitantly. Ava nodded. He reached out, placing his palm gently over the rounded curve. The moment stretched, quiet and sacred. "This child will always be loved," he whispered. "I will never fail her the way I failed you." Ava smiled through a soft ache. "She'll know you. I would never take that away. And you?" His voice broke, just slightly. "Will you be okay?" Ava nodded. "I already am. Not perfectly. Not fully. But I'm getting there. And that's enough." She pulled her hand back and exhaled. "Ethan," she murmured, "I don't think our story was a mistake. I think it was a lesson. You taught me what parts of myself I forgot. And I hope I taught you something too." He nodded, eyes bright but steady. "You taught me what love actually looks like. I just learned it too late." A small, almost peaceful smile curved her lips. "Better late than never. Even if the lesson is what helps us walk separate paths." When they stood to leave, Ethan didn't reach for her hand. He didn't beg, didn't slip promises into the air. He simply said, with the gentlest truth, "I'll spend my life trying to be worthy, not to win you back, but because loving you changed me. Thank you for that." Ava swallowed the warmth that rose in her chest. "Thank you for saying goodbye with kindness." They shared one last look, the kind that doesn't cling to what should have been, but honors what existed. Then they walked away in opposite directions. Not shattered, not resentful, just two people who once tried, who once hoped, who once loved, and finally learned to let go without cruelty. Weeks later, Ava gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Roman insisted on standing outside the delivery room. Luca cried before Ava did. Kai hummed to calm the baby in her first hour of breathing. They named her Grace, because everything about her arrival felt like it. Ethan came to see her 2 days later. He held the sleeping child with the gentleness of a man who understood second chances don't always come as romance. Sometimes they come as responsibility, as humility, as commitment to being better for someone small, innocent, and deserving. He kissed the baby's forehead, then met Ava's gaze. Not pleading, not longing, just grateful. "I'll show up," he promised quietly. "I know," she replied, and she meant it. As the sunlight warmed the nursery that afternoon, Ava finally understood something she had been too fragile to see before. Love does not fail when it ends. Sometimes it succeeds when it teaches two people how to grow apart with dignity. She sat there, rocking Grace gently, whispering to the new heartbeat that filled her world. We were made whole again, not together, but still whole. And just like that, the chapter that once felt like heartbreak finally became peace.
Subscribe for more echoes.